Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have a single story for you with 3 updates from the Today I Effed Up subreddit. Quick warning, this one's a little bit raunchy. If you don't like that kind of stuff, maybe this isn't the one for you. Alright, on to the story, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Nude at Noon. Today I effed up sleeping with my former boss in front of her husband. My former boss contacted me a few days ago with an unusual request. She wanted to know if I was interested in nookieing with her while her husband watched us. I said I was the wrong guy for the job, but she disagreed and said I was the perfect guy based on a random one-night stand we had years ago before she was married. She said her new husband wanted to watch her nookie another guy and she was into it. I agreed to discuss the possibility in person, especially when she offered to pay for dinner. I forgot how attractive she was until I saw her face to face. She introduced me to her new husband, who wanted me to understand that all he wanted was to be an observer in the bedroom. He made it sound like the worst case scenario was that I would have nookies, which I believed. So yeah, I said yes. Fast forward to the nookies. A couple of days had passed now since I said yes. I was in position when I heard snoring and farting coming from the so-called observer. The husband passed out at some point, but obviously not quietly, which affected my concentration on the nookies because the snoring was distracting and the farting was disgusting. My ex-boss apologized on her husband's behalf before grabbing the box of tissues next to the bed and aggressively hurling it at her unconscious husband. Aim was off. Tissue box missed the target, prompting my ex-boss to hysterically scream her husband's name over and over into my ears while I was still laying pipe and trying to pretend that absolutely nothing weird was happening. The husband eventually woke up after my ex-boss managed to scream his name at the top of her lungs. Cue all-out war. My ex-boss called her husband rude for falling asleep. The husband said he had a long day at work. My ex-boss scoffed and said he had no clue what a long day of work looked like because what he did in one day was nothing compared to what she had to do every day as an independent businesswoman. The husband said he had zero energy for another boss bitch speech. My ex-boss looked at me and said her husband had zero energy on a permanent basis. I asked both of them if they wanted me to stop the nookies and give them privacy because I was awkwardly doing this in silence while listening to them. My ex-boss said I should ask her husband since the whole thing was his idea. The husband unexpectedly slapped my butt on his way towards the bedroom door and said I should just finish and call it a night. I didn't finish, but I did call it a night when I realized that my desire to get away from my ex-boss and her husband outweighed my desire to finish. One night stand should have been enough, but I had to come back for more, which I now regret. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Dark Knight Barbecue. It says, I can only imagine OP just asking if he should stop laying pipe while the ex-boss is just going on and on to the husband. Laugh out loud. Like she's not even paying attention to getting salamied anymore and just needs to massacre her husband's ego. You know, when people ask me in the future to describe a healthy marriage, I'm going to refer to this post as one that is definitely not healthy. This is the counterexample. I'm not from this world, I don't begin to know what happens in this world, and I think we should jump into an update because there's 3 of them. Let's jump into update number 1. This update is titled, Today I Effed Up Sleeping with My Former Boss in Front of Her Husband. Update. So there I was, face to face with my former boss and her flatulent husband once again. I agreed to meet them at the same restaurant as the last time because the free food was the only good thing I remembered. The purpose of the meeting, according to my former boss, was to clear the air following what happened. A phone call or a message or no communication at all would have been more than acceptable for me because I just wanted to move on. But my ex-boss insisted on restoring peace in person. I eventually said yes. The husband was in the men's room when I showed up for the meeting, which made me laugh a little on the inside because it seemed like an unintentional nod to how active his butt was during our previous interaction. My ex-boss thanked me for agreeing to meet with her and said her husband would join us soon. Meanwhile, she apologized for how unfortunate things turned out when we had nookies before, telling me that she had been brainstorming ways to improve the experience for next time. The husband emerged from the men's room at that moment and greeted me with an awkward fist bump and an unspoken hello again, while his wife was trying to convince me to accept another invitation into their bedroom. She persuaded me to at least hear her out before I said yes or no. Her plan was to pivot her approach in the bedroom and embrace the dominant position because she believed her husband would be less likely to fall asleep again if he was watching her put on a show and take control. My ex-boss paused at that point and looked at her husband like that was his cue to swallow his sushi and add to what she was saying. The husband pointed his chopsticks at me and said he expected more energy from a young guy. I said nookieing another man's wife while the man was in the room was like trying to poop comfortably while a random person was watching. The husband asked if I made sounds when I pooped. I said my sounds mid-poop were dependent on how hard I had to push to unclog my colon. The husband said I might need to start pretending that I'm pushing as hard as possible when I sleep with someone because I never made a sound when I was intimate with his wife, which apparently contributed to his struggle to stay awake. I said pretending to poop during nookies was sound advice coming from a guy who was unable to stop farting while I was nookieing in front of him. My ex-boss pushed her plate away and said she lost her appetite listening to us. I said I didn't think I was compatible with my ex-boss, and her husband suggested that they get another guy for the job. My ex-boss pointed out that the two of us were very compatible when we had our one-night stand prior to her meeting her husband. I said I wouldn't call that compatible since she was my boss back then, and both of us were drunk. The husband said now he lost his appetite too. I said I had someone in mind that might be perfect for what they want. The husband sarcastically asked if it's another young employee his wife hooked up with. I said it was one of my more nookie experienced friends. My ex-boss said if it's not me, then it's no one. The husband encouraged his wife to at least allow me to provide more information about my friend before instantly calling off the whole thing. The information I provided prompted my ex-boss and her husband to agree to meet my friend. I contacted my friend the following day and explained the situation. He became interested as soon as I showed him photos of my ex-boss. I shared his contact details with my ex-boss with his permission and thought that would be the end of my involvement in this circus. Little did I know that my friend would call me a few days later to ask me why the F I never warned him that the husband had a pit bull. I said I didn't know. My friend said he had to nookie ex-boss in front of the husband and his hellhound. I asked my friend if the pit bull did anything to hurt him. He said the dog barked from time to time, and then the husband would either shush the dog or translate and tell my friend what the dog wanted him to do or not do. I was at a loss for words. My friend said the husband slapped his butt when he finished and called him a good boy. It sounded so ridiculous, I was struggling not to laugh. However, I did feel bad for my friend because I could relate. My friend said he would have punched the husband if the pit bull was not in the picture. I apologized for introducing him to my ex-boss and her husband. My friend thanked me for the trauma and said, "Bye, bro." I decided to do what I should have done after my last post and blocked my ex-boss. She's crazy, but I think she somehow married someone even crazier. I'm still working on a way to make my friend like me again. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Vane1111. It says, "Was I the only one to laugh and agree the air needed to be cleared in more way than one?" You know a story's getting good when there isn't a single point in that whole story where you know what the next words are going to be? My gosh, this is a ride. Let's jump into update number 2. This one is titled, "Today I effed up sleeping with my former boss in front of her husband. Second update, sadly." For the record, the F up here was telling my roommate everything and expecting it to stay between us. My roommate saw my parents in person for the first time a few days ago. My mom and dad were dropping off some of my belongings. My roommate was high in his room when my parents showed up. I made him promise that he would avoid interacting with my mom and dad because he was weird enough without being high. All my belongings were packed in boxes inside my dad's car. I urged my mom and dad to make themselves comfortable in my living room while I grabbed my stuff from the car. When I returned with my belongings, I noticed my mom and dad looked uncomfortable. My mom beckoned me to come closer and then lowered her voice to almost whisper level when she spoke. She said my roommate appeared in the background and awkwardly waved at them from a distance before saying he would never share his wife with another man if she looked like my mom. I connected the dots and realized what happened. My roommate noticed an older couple in our apartment and automatically thought my parents were my ex-boss and her husband, meaning he must have been Jesse Pinkman High. My dad said he was going to punch my roommate in the face if he saw him again. I apologized on behalf of my roommate and explained to my parents that my roommate was not himself due to the prescribed medication he was using. My dad said he wanted an explanation and an apology from my roommate. I looked at my mom for help, hoping she would read my mind and tell my dad to let it go, but she did nothing. I knocked on my roommate's door moments later and confronted him. He seemed confused as F when I informed him that the people in the living room were actually my parents and not the people he remembered from my story. I made it clear to my roommate that my dad was expecting him to explain himself and apologize. My roommate said, okay. I said not okay, not yet, not until we agreed on what he was going to tell my parents, because I didn't want my mom and dad to find out about my recent experience with my ex-boss and her husband. My roommate and I quickly rehearsed his explanation and apology with the words I was feeding him. It was simple. All he had to do was say sorry for what he said and blame it on the meds in his system. I said my mom would understand because if pharmacies were people, my mom would be one of them. As soon as my roommate approached my parents, he went off script and apologized to my mom and dad for confusing them with the businesswoman who had nookies with me in front of her sleepy husband. He also gave my dad permission to punch him because he wanted to know what a punch in real life sounded like. It was a lethal dose of cringe. I encouraged my roommate to go back to his room, but he went to the bathroom instead while humming what I later found out was Colors of the Wind from the animated Pocahontas movie. Random. My dad looked at my mom and asked her if she still thought it was too much to low-key pack a Bible with my belongings. I made up an excuse to get rid of my parents and avoid unpacking the ex-boss and husband situation that I literally cannot seem to escape. My life has become a bad comedy. If all of you never hear from me again, I'd consider that a positive outcome. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Azile96. It says, just admit your roommate was high as a kite and didn't know what he was saying, which would be the truth. Keep it simple, so not to invite more questions about the topic. Another commenter down below called JKLCS says, this is a gift that keeps on giving. Bless you, OP, laughing my butt off. If you thought that OP's parents finding out about what OP was doing was bad, you have no idea what's coming in the final update. Let's jump into that one now. This update is titled, Today I Effed Up, Sleeping with My Former Boss in Front of Her Husband. Third and final update, I'm done. Since my last update, which I was hoping would be my final update, my mom decided to go on Facebook and react to all the recent photos of me with my boss. Not me with my ex-boss that I had nookies with. Me with my current boss that I never had nookies with. My mom, who was apparently under the impression that my ex-boss and my current boss were the same person, my roommate referenced as the businesswoman in his stoned apology speech, reacted to literally all the photos with the angry tomato face emoji, which was an obvious indication that my mom had become a hater. The photos my mom was hating on were all innocent work photos the company tagged me in because I had successfully completed all of my courses. I called my mom and made her aware that I had to convince my coworkers that she was somewhat senile and clicked on the wrong react button. My mom said she was not senile. She was disgusted and disappointed that a person in power, especially a woman, would take advantage of her position and exploit me like that. I explained to my mom that she was confusing my ex-boss with my current boss, just like my high as F roommate who not so long ago confused my mom with my ex-boss. I said what happened between me and my ex-boss was not something I wanted to talk about with anyone anymore, because talking about it with other people thrusted me into this never-ending nightmare in the first place. In an attempt to get me to talk about what happened anyway, my mom reminded me that many moons ago she used to be my age too, and back then she didn't have a mom mode yet to stop her from doing shameful things. She said if we had to compare notes, I would realize she was in no position to judge me. I said comparing notes in that category must never be allowed between mother and son, or any relatives for that matter. My mom encouraged me to choose an evening when I would be available to have dinner with her and my dad to celebrate my achievements at work and to assure them that everything was okay. I explained to my mom that everything would be okay if everyone forgot about my ex-boss. I also made it clear to my mom that there was no need for celebration because my so-called achievements at work were compulsory courses I was forced to complete for my performance review to be approved. My mom said she was going to make lasagna. I said, nice try, Mom. The following evening, I was eating lasagna with my mom and dad at their house. Enjoying my mom's lasagna without getting flashbacks of my ex-boss was almost impossible, because eating with my parents made me feel like I was on another awkward dinner date with my ex-boss and her husband, where the free food, albeit delicious, eventually became my downfall. Losing my appetite due to PTND, post-traumatic nookie disorder, was one thing, but what made me want to projectile vomit my lasagna was my mom sharing some of her pre-mom mode experiences with me so that I could appreciate her vulnerability and be like, thanks mom for going back in time to your hoe phase. Let me follow your lead and tell you where my pecker's been recently. I managed to tune out my mom's monologue when she got to the part where she hooked up with a manipulative guy who never mentioned his fiancé and only wanted to nookie on staircases. When my mom was finally done talking, I said it was time for me to go. My dad agreed. My mom still expected me to open up about what happened with my ex-boss, but I refused. I left moments later with the bad taste of tainted lasagna in my mouth and the added trauma of knowing too much information about my mom's nookie history. End of third update. There will be no more updates going forward. It makes no sense for me to keep posting about my ex-boss if I'm hoping to forget about my ex-boss. It's been a roller coaster, and I'm glad some of you enjoyed the ride, but I think it's time for me to go back to being a lurker. I want to say that in the comment section for all of these updates, there are a ton of people saying that this story is fake and OP is a creative writer. I've got to say, I honestly don't care whether OP is a creative writer and this story is completely untrue or not, because oh my gosh, that was entertaining and hilarious at the same time. Did you know every single KCC video is also produced in podcast form? You can search for Karma Comment Chameleon on every major podcasting platform. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next one.